The resource-based economy is based on pure logic. If you go on a mountain expedition, you calculate how much food you have, how many people are, and how much do you stay there. So, you have enough resources throughout the expedition. If you send a spacecraft on the moon, you will first make an analysis to see if there are resources necessary to your expedition. You will take into account the food reporting to the number of people going on this expedition and the fuel for such a journey. If you, like a species, want to populate another planet, first you analyze what resources are available and how many people such a planet can sustain. Well, it's the exact same thing with the planet Earth, only that here, the monetary system do not take into account the planet resources. Luckily for us, there is already a plan for such an organization. It is called the Venus Project. A nation without a vision of what the future can be is bound to repeat past errors over and over again. This brief video will outline a vision designed to avoid all mistakes. A vision of efficiency, sustainability, and intelligent planning can lead us into a marvelous new world of unlimited human potential. Designing the future. This vision could be a showcase of what the world can be in our cybernated age. Science and technology could be used for human betterment and the restoration and protection of the environment, serving as an example of the intelligent application of the system's approach. While some people advocate the restoration of existing worn-out cities, these efforts fall short of the potentials of modern technology. Repairing outmoded cities results in higher costs of operation and maintenance. It was actually less expensive in the long run to build newer cities from the ground up than to restore and maintain old ones. A total city system approach requires overall planning to attain the highest standard of living for all their city's occupants. The circular arrangement efficiently permits the most sophisticated use of available resources and construction techniques with a minimum expenditure of energy. This can make available to all people the most advanced amenities that modern science and technology can provide. It could be the help and learning center where people from all over the world visit and hopefully emulate this design approach in other parts of the world. Design considerations for these new cities includes overall functioning, its ease of assembly, the reduction of maintenance, the efficient transportation, and its simplicity and durability. This would include the flexibility to permit ongoing and later changes. The city would function as an evolving, integrated organism rather than a static structure. This system's approach envisions assembling entire cities by standardized basic structural elements, which are prefabricated in automated plants and assembled on site. Many of these buildings would be comprised standard units that can be arranged to meet many different requirements. This approach means that these cities can be extremely cost-efficient because only one sector needs to be designed, which can be duplicated repeatedly for the completion of an entire city. The outer perimeter would be part of the recreation area, with golf courses, hiking and biking trails and opportunities for water sports. Inside this area, a waterway surrounds an agricultural belt, with indoor and outdoor agriculture. Continuing into the city center, 8 green sectors provide clean, renewable resources of energy, using wind, solar, and heat concentrators. Waste recycling, and other services, are located beneath the city. The plan utilizes the best of clean technology, and harmony with the surrounded environment. The residential district features beautiful landscaping, with lakes and winding streams. A wide range of creative, innovative apartment buildings and individual, unique homes would provide many options for the occupants. New and innovative methods of vast mass construction for housing and building systems would inject composed materials into a mold, and then extrude the form upward. In some cases, multiple city apartments can be produced as continuous extrusions, which are then separated into individual units. Cranes transport these prefabricated dwellings to site locations. They are then lifted and inserted into a support structure. The apartments are lightweight and high-strength. All of these dwellings are designed as self-contained residences. The outer surface of these efficient structures serve as photovoltaic generators, converting the solar radiation directly into electricity for heating, cooling and other needs. The thermocouple effect would also be used for generating electricity. The wide range of individual homes are prefabricated and relatively maintenance-free, fire-resistant and impervious to weather. With this type of constructions, there will be little or not damage from floods, earthquakes or hurricanes. Their thin shell construction can be mass-produced, efficiently and economically. New energy-efficient systems can be installed to supply enough power to operate the entire household. Adjacent to the residential district are planning, science and research centers. 8 domes, surrounding the central dome, house art, music, exhibition, entertainment and conference centers. Lovely parks, lakes, streams and waterfalls are located through the entire city. The central dome, or theme center, contains schools, healthcare, shopping, communications networking, and child care. It is also the core for most transportation services, which move people by transverse, horizontally, vertically and radially anywhere in the city. This minimizes the need for automobile transportation, except for emergency vehicles. Transportation between cities would be by monorails. The central dome would eventually house a cybernated complex, which serves as the brain and nervous system of the entire city. It projects a 3D, virtual image of Earth, using satellite communication systems which display information on weather, agriculture, transportation and the operation of the whole city. This cybernated system would use environmental sensors to help maintain a balanced load economy, which avoids overalls and shortages. For example, in the agricultural belt, electronic probes monitoring and maintain the soil conditions, water table, nutrients and more. This method of electronic feedback can be applied to the entire city complex. With computers now able to process trillions of bits of information per second, they are vital for arriving at correct decisions for the management of these innovated cities. Some of these cities may be total enclosure systems, which are self-efficient. These massive structures would contain residences, parks, recreation, entertainment, healthcare, educational facilities and more. Everything built in these cities would be as near to a self-contained system as conditions allow. In this total enclosure arrangements, The skyscraper assures that more land is available for parks and wilderness preserves, while at the same time eliminating urban sprawl. Wherever possible, geothermal energy can be harnessed. Geothermal power offers the possibility of an abundant source of clean energy. This source alone can provide enough energy for the next 1,000 years. National transportation systems would include a network of waterways and canals. These bodies of water could minimize the threat of floods and droughts by diverting floodwaters to storage basins. In addition, these canals could supply water for irrigation, fish farms and recreation. The canals can also be used for desalinization, using a method of evaporative condensation. A network of tunnels could facilitate transportation of passengers and freight across the Sahara Desert to all the Earth nations, free of the effects of sandstorms. These tunnels would be located 30 to 40 feet below the desert surface, with ventilators every 1,000 feet. Water could be pumped from below the surface of the Sahara and transported to all the Earth nations. In some instances, ships could serve as floating automated plants, capable of processing raw materials into finished products while en route to their destinations. Huge ships and submarines, with many removable and interchangeable compartments, would carry freight across the oceans. Rather than separated containers, an entire freight section can be automatically disengaged at the point. Bridge designs would be greatly simplified, and bridges can be made corrosion resistant. They would be prefabricated and transported to the site by twin-hulled catamarans. On some bridges, trains could be suspended beneath traffic lines. Colonization of the oceans is one of the last frontiers remaining on Earth. Prodigious oceanic city communities would evolve as artificial islands, floating structures, undersea observatories, and more. These large marine structures are designed to explore the relatively untapped riches of the oceans and provide improved mariculture, freshwater production, energy and mining. This could offset land-based shortages. They could also provide almost unlimited riches in pharmaceuticals, chemicals, fertilizers, minerals, oil and natural gas. Ocean cities would be resistant to earthquakes and greatly relieve land-based population pressures. The population would vary from several hundred to many thousand. Underwater oceanic viewing and research facilities provide expansive panoramic observations of the undersea world in its natural habitat without disturbing the ocean environment. Unsinkable floating sea domes would attract those who prefer unique offshore or island living. In the event of inclement weather, they could easily be towed ashore, mounted, and anchored to elevated support structures. Mariculture and sea farming systems are used to cultivate and raise fish and other forms of marine life to help meet nutritional needs. These marine enclosures are designed as non-contaminating integral parts of the ocean environment. A true World's Fair of the future would emphasize the contributions made by all nations toward advancing humanity. Although this fair would provide entertainment, its main function is the deeper understanding of the world we live in and the people who inhabit it. The architectural structures themselves would be jewels of future possibilities, with a wide variety of exhibition buildings. Many of the displays will depict not what the future will be, but what it can be if we use science and technology with human and environmental concerns. It could be a vivid future showcase of the human potential. Videos, three-dimensional displays, and full-size diagrams will depict the fabulous advantages for all nations when working together to preserve the greatest gift we have, the resources and beauty of our planet. In a final analysis, we are one people and share one planet. Jacques Fresco is the one who set up such a project. He is now 94 years old and worked all his life to the intelligent organizing of human species. Since 30 years ago, he presented solutions that barely today are put into practice, such as maglev terrain, self-erecting buildings, self-sustaining houses, plus many other inventions that have not been put into practice because of the monetary system. Actually, the Venus Project, it's not his idea, he just put things in order, into a smart and progressive way.
My guest is an extraordinary Miamian, Dr. Jacques Fresco. I could go through all the things that Dr. Fresco has done. He's a social engineer, industrial engineer, designer, inventor, consultant, was a consultant for Rotorcraft Helicopter, director of Scientific Research Laboratories, Los Angeles, designed and copyrighted various items, ranging from drafting instruments to X-ray units. Has had works published in the Architectural Record, Popular Mechanics, Saturday Review, and has been a technical and psychological consultant to the motion picture industry, member of the Air Force Design Development Unit at Wright Field, developed the electrostatic anti-icing systems, designed prefabricated aluminum houses. What does it say in your driver's license? What is the occupation?
Industrial designer.
Jacques, you...
Social engineer.
Does it bug you that people, when they talk about Jacques Fresco in Miami, say that he's someone who's too far ahead of his time? His thinking is... We're not ready for advanced kind of thinking. Of that type. Does it bug you?
I imagine every creative person in every field encounters that sort of problem. No, it doesn't. I can't afford it. There's too many things that are important.
What do you think of when you contemplate the future? For Jacques Fresco, this is what it looks like. A future where technology is harnessed for all and money has no relevance.
So you think you know what the future will look like?
Few people do, but once that Florida man, a very brilliant man, does, because he's designing it. A place where there will be no food shortages, no fear of hurricanes, and no war. It's called the Venus Project.
Extraordinary 93-year-old thinker who has created a strategy to build a new, unified, symbiotic world in harmony with nature. This project intends to achieve nothing less than the unification of the human race. It includes the design of new cities, the abolition of money, a new paradigm for living. It is called the Venus Project.
He has been labeled as a genius, a prophet, a visionary, and sometimes as an eccentric and dismissed as an utopian dreamer. But in the end, no matter what they say, he's Jacques Fresco, the creator and the mind behind the Venus Project, a monumental work of several fields of knowledge that unify the concept of a new future for the human civilization. Fresco's entire life is perhaps the definition of a second chance, a new opportunity for social progress in harmony with our planet and technology.
Born on March 3rd, 1916, Jacques Fresco has been called many things. Designer, architect, inventor, author, and futurist. His sensibilities stem from a first-hand experience of the Great Depression, a detailed understanding of the effects of a scarcity-based economy and the conflicts it produces. Primarily self-taught, Jacques advocates for a society that pursues science and technology as a means of continually educating itself, believing that such a society neither wants nor needs to be controlled. Proclaimed a visionary, Jacques offers bold and complete reformation of the world's social constructs to promise a brighter tomorrow, if we can unite as humans in its pursuit today. Jacques Fresco represents not only the sincerest belief of artists and designers to effect positive change in a society, but a pure conviction, if not responsibility, to absolve failing systems. In a 1974 interview with Larry King, Jacques Fresco can best be quoted with the following: "There are no Negro problems or Polish problems, or Jewish problems or Greek problems or women's problems. There are only human problems." Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to introduce Jacques Fresco.
If the chief says something, it's so. If the king says something, it's so. If a politician says something, it's so. Right now they're concerned with foreclosures on banks. They're concerned with giving the banks money, and the banks didn't use that money for the purpose intended. So they have words like fraud. You can't do anything that way. You have to take in the whole picture and ask, what is it that you want? What kind of world do you want? So, I have drawings of different cities. Those cities have an end goal. They're not just cities. The goal of those cities is to make things relevant to people that they respond to. There's no other way. Now, people that live in the city have many different reactions to the city. It's my home. My grandfather was born there. My favorite city. But they really don't understand what a city is, what it serves. Now, they use words like shelter. Home is a shelter. But when you wear a diving suit and you go underwater, that's a closed environment, shelter for underwater living. If a man goes out into space, he brings with him the air in a suit. And in that suit he has all type of equipment he may need on that mission. If you give him a book, a novel to take out into space, it's dead weight, doesn't serve anything. If you give him an emergency book of what to do when oxygen stops or something goes wrong, that's something. But a book about how Seminole Indians treat fish would have no use in space. Our society is loaded with how Seminole Indians treat fish. There's lots of superfluous information, superfluous to the needs of people. Must everything be scientific? If it is not, it's less valid. Is there a place for non-scientific? By non-scientific, do you mean speculative notions? Or scientific is, I don't know, let's try to find out. Does it mean you'll find out? Not necessarily. You'll find out if you have the appropriate needs.
Jacques continues to invent every day, to write, to work. He has a zest for life that keeps him going and keeps him working, and he's interested in things. He's interested in what happens out there and how this will play out and how it'll turn out, while very much wanting to introduce this direction to the world. So that's his prime focus, and he does that in every way he can by actually showing. It's not enough to just tell what the future will be like, but to show what people are missing. He keeps coming up with new ideas, new inventions, new designs, improves what he has, represents them better, makes more models, makes more videos. He's relentless at trying to get these ideas out. I think he fears where society is now. It's not acceptable to him, but instead of just complaining, he wants to propose an alternative.
When people say, are you trying to build a perfect society? I have no notions of a perfect society. I don't know what that means. I know we can do much better than what we've got. I'm no utopian. I'm not a humanist who would like to see everybody living in warmth and harmony. I know that if we don't live that way, we'll kill each other and destroy the earth. Now, somebody said to me, what if a guy wants to take more than what is allowable? First of all, they go to an orientation center first. It describes how the city works, where you can access food, where you can pick up information in any area. It's just like if you want to fly an airplane, they don't put you in an airplane. They put you in a unit. You move the controls first, just to get the feel of it. Then when they bring you over to an airplane, they say the first thing you check is the tires. And you check the air pressure, and you check the movement of those, to make sure they all work. And then you sit in that plane for a little while, get familiar with the instrument. You can't move normal, mean fucked up people into this city and expect to have a decent world. You can't. Any more than you can become an engineer without going through a specialized environment called the university. The university is an environment that specializes in how to be an engineer, an architect, whatever. So we want to change the global environment and make a global university. All cities with a university. A group of scientifically oriented people do a study of the earth and its resources to find out what the carrying capacity is of the earth. If you produce a population in excess of what the earth can support, there's going to be trouble. That's why when they send men to the moon, they want to know, is there water on the moon? Can you grow food on the moon? How many people can the moon support? You can't send 1,000 people to the moon. All decisions are made by survey, no opinions.
Many people ask me the question, what if I wanted to have a gold-plated toilet? Obviously that's a distortion of values, correct?
I would say so. Within your culture, it seems to be normal. Within this culture, changes in fashion and all that seems to be acceptable because you're brought up in that kind of culture. What you really need is sensible clothing that fit well, that breathe, that's self-repairing, that is self-creasing. In other words, you really need certain things, but you can't identify what you need due to the fact that you're brought up in a primitive culture. Ask an Eskimo what he wants. He says, well, he wants a good season of hunting, and he wants an igloo that's stable, and he wants a lot of seals, and he doesn't like to put his grandmother out on the ice if the hunting season is good. If there's scarcity, he may have to put his grandmother out on the ice. In other words, what can an Eskimo ask for except that within the range of his experience? An Eskimo cannot say, I'd like a stainless steel refrigerator with an acoustical system in my sound unit. He can't ask those questions. Everything you request is within the contents of the environment that you're brought up in.
I couldn't agree more, and back to the example of the gold-plated toilet. Obviously the utility is thrown out the window. It's simply a matter of status, of social vanity, and I believe I would have to say those come with a great deal of distortion.
In the future, I don't think anybody would want a Kennedy rocking chair. It's bad anatomically, it's bad for the body physiologically. What we need is contoured furniture that's contoured to the human body, not because President Kennedy once had a rocking chair. Do you understand what I mean? Our values are so false, I hardly know where to start. Science is really the ability to predict the next most probable. That's what the real meaning of science is. Gaining the ability to predict the next most probable. When we talk about science, we're talking about a method of looking at a situation, a method of evaluation that differs from the opinionated system. If you ask me, I'll tell you. The scientific method has no special connection to truth. It really has a better way of looking at things than the earlier systems, which everything was attributed to gods or demons.
This is where we get into applying the scientific method to society.
Yes. Now, this is not in the book yet. The scientific method applied to society is something people don't think about much. But if you want to know where the answers may lie, it is in the application of the methods of science with human concern and environmental concern. The future by design refers to the application of the methods of science, not scientists, the methods of science to the social system. Naturally, Even the methods of science undergo change, and as they change, so would the future. If we use the scientific method throughout the world, the probability of war drops to zero. The probability of human suffering disappears. Deprivation, poverty, crime, all those things tend to disappear because there's no basis for it.
Jacques spent a lot of time before studying people. He started studying how animals behave and how to change the behavior of animals or predict the behavior of animals. And it came to the conclusion that it's really the environment that changes behavior and enables us to behave the way we do.
Any culture in the world today tries to educate people so they'll serve a function in that particular culture. In other words, if you grew up in a Nazi culture, the flag waving and the swastika are the kind of things they put forth. If you're brought up in a primitive tribe, handling the javelin, the bow and arrow would be the kind of thing that you're exposed to. So people are conditioned to serve the interests of an established culture. Who does that to us? The owners of the institutions, the establishment. So they give us a value system that would support existing structures, whether it be religious, non-religious, industrial, military. When children say, you know, Daddy, what's the greatest country in the world? Of course our country is the greatest country in the world. Which God is the right God, Daddy? Our God. All the other gods are false gods. So picture this, a Roman family taking its kids to see the Christians being fed to the lions. And the kids are watching. Dad, can we come next week to see Christians being fed to lions? Are these kids sick? No, their value system is distorted. So I'm strictly concerned with the environment that people are raised in. And if that environment is altered, so will behavior be altered. You reorient the environment, that in turn reorients people. But if you reorient people without touching the environment, it'll slip back. So when you try to think about the future, remember this. The process with which you think about things is based upon indoctrination, what you're given by your society. So your range of thought is limited by the dominant values of your society. So learning to be flexible in values takes a long time. So you get metaphysics, you get religion, you get superstition, not wood, or you wear a rabbit's foot. Just remember that the rabbit had 4 of them. Didn't do him any good. So on down the line, superstition prevails wherever ignorance prevails. Myth is a way of saying to the little guy working out there in the field, when he says, what is all this amount? I never seem to be getting anywhere. When you kick the bucket, everything is there for you. If you don't get it in this life, you'll get it in the next. If you remain good, the amount of superstition that a culture can absorb would be directly proportionate to the amount of information people have. So in the future, with adequate supply of information, more than that which is given today, considerably more, you don't have, knock wood. Today's my lucky day. When your number is up, it's up. All that will disappear in the future.
I look at this as everything he's doing is to be as being the utmost in spirituality. Instead of looking for a better world later, after you die, it's really building the type of things that all religious teachings talk about here on earth. We don't have to wait till we die for that. We can confront our problems today and not wait for the Messiah to come with the white robe and change things, or not wait till we all go to heaven at a certain time, or those believers that go to heaven at a certain time. We can deal with the problems today. For instance, in religion, they put things on the will of God. If there's an accident, it's the will of God, and it stops you from thinking. It stops you from being innovative. It stops you from thinking about, well, how do we redesign the transportation system so we don't have those problems anymore? So he's worked with priests and he's worked with religious people and kind of expand their horizons a bit so they can be more creative. They look at the environment that shapes people's behavior, and they don't call them good or bad anymore. They think about shaping the environment to get more constructive behavior.
If you were to ask me to redesign the world and the way people live, first thing I would have to do is conduct a survey, find out what we have, how much water do we have, how much people, how much arable land area. After I know that, then I can base the parameters of design on what we have. What you really need is an understanding of the Earth's resources by agronomists, geologists, geophysicists, people who study the Earth. They don't give you their opinion. They say there's more life in the Antarctic. That's not an opinion, that's a finding. So in the future, no more opinions. You have information in this area? No, I don't. Good. Here's where you might get it, or here's how you might go about finding out. So I'm saying all people need clean air, clean water, arable land, and a good relationship, a language. So I'm not superimposing Fresco's concepts. I'm using the Earth as the measure. In other words, we have to live in accordance with the carrying capacity of the Earth. If you use resources intelligently, everybody will live better than Bill Gates. I mean that. How many of you have a laptop? Will you raise your hand? Okay. Did you know that 10 years ago a laptop would cost $10 million? What it does? If you go to any modern airport today, there's a train without people in it that operates it. No conductors, nobody. It stops exactly there. Just as you get cigarettes and Coke from machines, you can automate all department stores. I don't want a young girl standing behind the counter. What can I do for you, ma'am? 15 years, the best years of her life, selling cosmetics. Is that using her head? Is that using education? No. So I say every person in a high-tech society will live better than the wealthiest people today.
A lot of people project their own values into a cybernated government. I'd just like to tell you what it is so that you don't have any misunderstanding. Actually, computers today can handle 1,000 trillion bits of information per second. Now, no group of humans can do that. So when I talk of a cybernated government, I'm not talking about a machine takeover. I'm talking about machines assisting people in the production of foodstuff and transportation, automated transportation. In fact, just recently on television, they announced the fact that the next few years, automobiles will drive themselves. All you do is pick your destination. But anyway, we will surpass automobiles when we do an adequate transportation system that can take you anywhere in the city with minimum possibility of accidents. So when I say a cybernated government, I do not mean machines taking over. I mean machines being assigned the task of producing in abundance and making it available to all people. These machines do not control people. They only monitor production, distribution, transportation of goods and services. If you don't understand that yet, consider this. Do you remember when people used to operate elevators? Well, those people are gone now. When you press 18, the elevator takes you right to that floor. When people used to operate it, they couldn't quite control the elevator and get it to stop exactly at the floor level. Today, all that's been, people have been phased out. And I say that people cannot handle more than 7 different things mentally. They can walk, drink a cold drink, a sandwich, and talk to their friends. But when it's over 7 different things, they have difficulty. If computers can handle 1,000 trillion bits of information per second, you know, they used to have a fan boy in the early days that cooled off occasions. Today the fan boy's gone, they have air conditioning. You know what I mean? It isn't that the air conditioning machine took over. It's been assigned a different task. So when I talk of an automated government, I mean to replace those bits of information that people can't handle. For example, politicians don't know how to solve problems. don't take my word for it. Just ask any politician, how would you prevent automobiles from hitting one another? They say, I don't know. How can you increase the agricultural yield without exhausting the soil? I don't know. But what do they know? What can they do? When you pick a house in the future, if you check with a computer, if you want a balcony, say, sticking out 10 feet or 8 feet, if the computer will suggest 12 feet, you can have a dining area out there. The computer does not override you, it merely suggests.
Right. Well, I mean, it's just like you said, like the setting on your air conditioning. That doesn't mean there's this evil overlord determining what your temperature is. It just means that there's a regulated system that's taking care of those things.
When the ship is sinking, women and children first. We don't do that. We say, do you know anything about navigation? Get on the boat. Do you know how to catch fish in the open sea? Get on the boat. Then women and children. Otherwise, they'll all starve to death. When they say to me, I don't like to experiment on animals. I think that's not right. Well, what do you suggest we do with a new injection for infantile paralysis? What do you suggest? Well, I don't know. Now, what are you talking about? Unless you can suggest something, deal with the problem. Do you understand? They show some robots flying an airplane. You don't want a robot, you want controls to move automatically. You don't need a guy there working the controls. If you go to a coffee company that's automated, you put it in nickel or 50 cents in the machine and you select what coffee you want. You press the button and it makes different types of coffee. Well, that's the same with the future. You don't have a robot standing there boiling coffee and taking the coffee. That's in the movies. That gave people the wrong idea. You don't want a robot walking here and says, what would you like for breakfast? You want a machine to produce what you like on the table you're at. You don't need a robot bringing you the fucking coffee or pushing vacuum cleaner. It's all ass backwards. That's normal people, Hollywood. They call it Hollywood hacks that know nothing about the future. They say, I believe in nature. Nature's harmonious. Every big fish is eating every smaller fish. Every organ in your body is fighting constantly, invading bacteria. Is that what you mean by harmony? There are planets that are exploding out there. What's the purpose of that? What's the purpose of floods? To drown people? In other words, if you start looking for purpose, you've got to look all over, take in the whole picture. So man projects his own values into nature. Nothing I talked about was against anybody. I didn't want to kill anybody, hurt anybody, put anybody in jail. There are no prisons, no police, no armies, no navies in this system. Because people have access to whatever the hell they need. You can go to the watch center and check out a watch, any kind you like, free, without payment or obligation. I said, well, where are you going to get the money to give out all that stuff? It costs $50,000 to keep a kid in jail a year. You know any watches ever buy? It's cheaper to give a watch. Give them blue jeans, whatever the hell they need. The stupidity of this culture is unbelievable. Okay? I'm talking about the United States and all other societies. I'm not holding it. None of them are any good. Communism, social, don't know what to do.
They're even thinking of terraforming other planets, making Mars livable and the Moon livable. I'm against that because the Earth is falling apart. We're poisoning the air, the oceans, the rivers, the streams. What we have to do is clean up the Earth first. Stop thinking of terraforming other planets. You can't move collective civilization to other planets. It's an impractical artificiality at this time. Let's take care of the Earth and prevent it from falling apart.
And the young kid got up and said, I dislike your system intensely. I said, I can't do anything with that unless you tell me what it is you don't like about it. He said, you want to give people things for nothing, and I'm against that. So I said, were you born in America? He said, yes. You got the railway, the telephone, television, radio, all that for nothing, just being born here. You didn't work on it. Does that spoil you? He said, yeah, but I think if you give people things for nothing, it will kill in sentiment. So I says, I've got to ask you a personal question. Are you paying your way through college? He said, well, my dad is. Does that spoil you? There's enough for nothing. When a woman marries a wealthy guy, she's got servants, a new car, just by marrying a wealthy guy. She gets it for nothing. Nobody ever questions that. I said, I understand you. Your father is a rich guy. Kid says, yes, he is. When he dies, you want his money to go to the heart fund and the cancer fund, not to you. If you don't believe, he said, just a minute.
You don't want the Japanese killing whales. You know, and we kill chickens and cows because we eat them. See, and the Japanese eat fish. They eat certain things we don't eat. So why shouldn't they kill the whales? Who are you to say don't kill the whales? Don't kill anything. Don't kill a fly, because they're here made by God. You're killing all God's creatures. You know, there's no way to deal with that subject. Somebody says to me, are you a vegetarian? You know, you don't eat meat, or you eat only organic foods. I used to be a vegetarian, till I saw cancer on rabbits, which are vegetarians. I saw cancer on cows, and they found cancer on dinosaur bones. Now a guy, I don't know if you know this, we have labels we give animals, such as animal life and plant life. But there are certain plants that can convert sunlight to tissue. But when the sun isn't out, it behaves like an animal. It eats things, other plants and other animals. The Venus flytrap closes on insects. So a guy named Bose of the Bose Institute in India said, I don't know about vegetation. So he took a cucumber and he ran a needle into it. And the pain indicated 4 times more sensitive than any human being. A cucumber. And I used to think, well, the thing's a vegetable, it doesn't feel anything.
Some people would want or need drugs. Would it be made available to them?
Yes, it would.
It would?
Yeah.
Okay.
You will, if you, see, we show people smoking cigarettes, talking, but then we show the human lung, the real film, and it stretches. If you smoke a long time, it tears, and then cancer cells form. Then the guy chokes, he can't breathe. We show a guy dying, real, in a hospital, trying to breathe. He's been smoking for 20 years. We don't say stop smoking. We show films of the results of a certain viewpoint. You understand? If you don't get it, you can still smoke if you want to. Okay, we don't order you not to smoke. If you try to do that, it'll go underground. People will smoke in the cellar. If you try to ban religion, it'll go underground. Don't ban anything. Well, the electrical grid supplies electrical energy for many different purposes. There'll be groups of people that will knock out one leg of a main tower and falls over and power is out from LA to San Francisco. The revolutionary types of the future will be intelligent people too. And a scientific advisory board is as developed as a culture. You understand? Conservative scientists seem to dominate in this kind of culture. Radical scientists, according to Goddard, you know who Goddard was, the American rocket scientist? He said, he wrote many times that you don't talk about rockets in scientific circles. You're looked upon as a radical, you know, that it's impractical, dreamer. You understand? He wrote that. He always said that. When I go to scientific, I can't talk about it because they ridicule me. So, is there such a thing as a scientist? I don't believe so. I believe there are people that are scientific oriented by their culture up to the limit of what their culture gives them. If they were scientific, they would immediately ask about the culture, how it operates. They don't even look at the highways as inefficient. They're commercial products, highways, automobiles. What the question is distribution of resources to people in the most efficient manner. That's the problem. So obviously, there's no such thing as a scientist, from my point of view. You understand? A scientist would not be engaged in particle behavior while the Earth's falling apart. He would immediately turn his attention to protection of the environment. And when I said we don't have enough money to build antibodies for all the known diseases, but do we have enough resources? Scientists, yeah. Now what the hell are you dealing with raising funds for? Do you know what I mean? That's why I say I can't conceive of a scientist today. I don't say there are none. I haven't met any. Have you? Scientists that are social, that say the only problem is the insufficiency of our social design. That's what the problems are.
In regards to sports and football, and they feel that these things would be very difficult for people to grow out of, the competitive sports. And could you comment on this the cultural issue of competition in sports and this mentality that everyone finds normal?
Peter, you can't outlaw sports. People are conditioned to it any more than you can outlaw religion.
Sure.
Or stealing, or drugs. Say no to drugs. That doesn't work. So you can't outlaw it. In ancient Rome, it was normal to feed Christians to lions, and families would go to see that. And then in Spain, you have bullfights. A lot of people here would be shocked by a bullfight. But in the future, sports is a way of filling in time. And entertainment is another thing, acting as a detractor from real events in the world. Soap operas are detractors that take your attention off real problems. Music and dancing would be considered detractors. In the future, you would have so many new options that you would never get involved in a nothingness field. Nothingness means fashion. There'll be healthy clothing designed for people that will breathe while you walk and cool off when it's hot. It'll help the body maintain optimal temperature. Shoes will breathe as you walk. They will not be designed by stylists or people that drape fabric around in different directions. These are totally detractive. They have nothing to do with a sane society. A sane society will design clothing that's comfortable and maintain materials that serve more than just cover the body.
And when people go to watch sports, they don't go and say, well, George played well on that team and Harry played well on that team. No, it's all competitive. It's this us against them mentality. And it primes people for patriotism and for war mentality also.
Definitely. That's a great point. That's a great
point. You can't outlaw sports, but you can outgrow the need for most of it. What do automobile races prove? Some egocentric person gets in a car and drives it around in circles. Do you know why people go there? Because they say, hey, maybe the guy will lose control of the car. They go there because they go to watch fights and wrestling matches, which we consider good sport today.
Sure.
It'd be considered unsane in the future. So you see, what you call right and normal today would be considered aberrant behavior in the future. That's what's wrong with psychology and psychiatrists. They try to adjust you to this system. You have to be some sort of an imbecile to do that. The system is the generator of most of the problems that you have today, are generated by your culture, by the social institutions that are dominant. It doesn't grow out of nothing. People aren't born liars, thieves, bigots, and prejudiced. You learn that in the world you live in.
And it's too bad, even the activists today who want to see change, some of them, they don't know where the problems lie. They try and make this system more ethical and just, but never consider that it's a system that produces that aberrant behavior.
And a lot of people think that human nature is a certain way, and that's the way people are. They're basically greedy. This is not true. All human behavior is learned and based on your environment, unless you're talking about brain damage due to birth defects and things of that sort. That's something else. But you cannot inherit acquired characteristics. In other words, you learn how to become prejudiced, bigoted, and some of the geneticists, being super stupid people also, are looking for the Republican gene. They think there's a social gene. They think there are genes that make you gay. They think that some genes make you creative. No, it's all environment. Eventually you'll find out. You'll notice that most people, when they see their children associating with children that have detrimental patterns of behavior, they take them away from that environment. When you want your children to be a doctor or a lawyer, you put them in a university environment. When you want them to be an engineer, you put them in an engineering environment. Where do you think it comes from? Engineers are not born engineers or mathematicians. They have to learn it. You don't even speak a language of your own. So the language, your facial expressions, the way males behave, the way females behave, is all learned.
And, you can learn how to be smart, or you could learn how to be stupid. It just depends on who you hang around with and what books you read and what television stations you watch or movies you watch.
You can't design the best television set. You can only design the best you can design with what we know up to now. 2 years from now, it'll be different. Does that make sense? The city that I design will be a straitjacket to the kids of the future.
Right.
They'll design their own cities. But if you make a statue of Fresco and put it here, you hold them back. So there are no heroes, no great people in the future, just people that make contributions.
In the past, people would say, you'd never be able to get to the moon, not in 1,000 years. And they'd look up the next day and they're going to the moon. When I first met Jacques 25 years ago and he would talk to some people about certain inventions, they'd say, you won't see that, not in 1,000 years. And 10 years later, they come out with it on the cover of Popular Science.
Someone asked me, would everybody be alike in your society? Yes, in certain areas. They will love the earth and take care of it, stick their hands out when they meet another person from a different culture and say, your values are different than mine, I'd like to learn more about your way of thinking. They will be the same in that way. They will be open to new ideas, learn to listen to new ideas, ask relevant questions about ideas. Yes, in those areas they will be alike. Our problems are not political, they're technical. Everything that you have, your washing machine, your electric light, your automobiles, your airplane, are all technical. Without those things, you'd be pulling boats. Slavery. You'd be whipped and beaten into slavery. So technology is on the backs of probably no more than 20 people, gave us everything. The Edisons, Louis Pasteur. If it wasn't him, we'd all be dead. So the real things that you have that work for you are technical. What the Venus Project proposes is a society where everyone will live better than the wealthiest people today. Everyone. Now, is that possible? Let me give you an example. The middle-class American today, or the middle-class person in any advanced society, lives better than kings. They have air conditioning in their car, they have communications in their car, telephones, they fly and fly. Even the Arabs used to think of a magic carpet. The guy sat on the carpet and they flew around, they thought that was fantastic. But they never told you when it rained, the carpet got soaked, everybody got wet, or you had to go to the washroom. What did you do in the magic carpet? Now you have airplanes with television in the airplanes. Even the magic carpet was considered, oh, that's too far out. Nothing's too far out. Anything a person can conceive of can be built.
I keep wondering about how drastic a social change this is and how totally different our world would be. And yeah, how do you get people to accept it? Yeah.
Okay, here's how we do it. Eventually, all decision-making will be transferred to machines. First, people say, well, no, I don't know that I'd like machines making decisions. First of all, that's what a scale does. You go to a butcher shop, The butcher said the chicken weighs 6 pounds. Since you're buying it, he said, that doesn't look like 6 pounds to me. So you grab it, so I think it weighs about 4, because you're tense, so it seems to weigh less. Then the scale came in, and we assigned decision-making to the scale. Is that right?
Yes.
So do pilots. When they fly, I think of 1.5 miles high. They look at an instrument, and it tells them they're 4,203 feet off the ground. So that is decision made by a machine, because decision-making by machine is far more accurate. Now the question normal people ask is, yes, but can the machine be smarter than the designer? Well, I know a little guy that designed a machine to pick up a freight train and empty it. Now he can't do that. Machines are always faster than the designer. You ever see a Coke bottle machine move on the line? The designer, he can't move those bottles. So what is happening in our society? We are automating more and more decision-making and assigning it to machines. Picture a Department of Agriculture as a setup of computers with electrical wiring into the soil, like that. So if the water table drops, that pumps water out there. If the nutrients change, it pumps nutrients. You don't need a guy out there saying, Mr. President, we have a drought out here. And the president says, how bad is it? Well, there are 5,000 homeless. In the next 3 days, there'll be 15,000 homeless. So the president says, So he flies over. He says, yes, you do have a drought. So what? When you connect up the country, all the computers, the production, distribution, agriculture, you have a nervous system which maintains dynamic equilibrium in production and distribution of goods and services without money. The government is right above your head there. If you can turn around and see it, it looks like the globe. That globe there makes all the decisions because it's connected. We have satellites around the Earth that project a hologram, a virtual image of the Earth. So you're looking at the real Earth in real time. So you walk over to the image screens and you talk. You say, how many planes are there in the air at this instant? The computer will hit a laser spot all over the world and tell you 7,320. Every plane in the air, every hurricane, all the conditions all over the Earth, plant diseases. No human can do that. So we don't need people in government. We need electronics in the field, production, distribution, weather, so we can come at home and find out anything we want to know without opinions based on folksy ways.
When there's a depression or a dip in the economy and a lot of people don't have money to buy things, there are still goods out there. There's still the ability to produce them. There's still the resources. There's still the farms, and people want to work and make things, but they don't have the money. They can't buy things. So there's something terribly wrong out there. We have a great deal of the Earth's population starving and suffering, and the resources are there. Our ability to produce is there. Our ingenuity is there. Yet some people have a lot and others don't have anything. And today that's really shameful with our technology. It's really very, very abusive and absurd because we have all the technology today to produce abundance all over the world for everyone.
People always ask, how much will it cost to put up these new cities? Do we have the resources to do it? That's the question, not how much does it cost. That's the old question, during the monetary system. Money is an invention of convenience for purchasing goods and services in a scarcity environment. If there's a scarcity, say, of water, it is prized, and its price is high. If we find an abundant, suddenly the earth opens up, an abundant supply of fresh water fills every ravine, then nobody cares. There's only a policeman in front of something that people have need for and don't have access to. So you put a guard there. But if lemon trees or orange trees and apple trees grew all over the place, you couldn't sell it. Imagine, if you will, if you can, an island of 10,000 people with $10 billion on the island available. No resources, no arable land, no water, no fish. You have nothing. So what is the real value in the future? Resources. Now, in a non-monetary based society, a resource-based society, People have access to anything that they need, somewhat like the public library. They can go down and access a camera or a bicycle or a wristwatch. Anything that they need is available without a price tag. That would mean we must achieve a level of production that's so high that scarcity no longer exists. Many people wonder what would drive people if they have access to all their needs. What would happen to incentive? What will motivate people? Or something gain. What's the gain? Although the gain is that materials are available, what will motivate them on to do better than what they have? Need. We will always lack. And the fact that we will always lack, meaning that we cannot achieve perfection, we cannot achieve truly dynamic equilibrium, we will always be in some form of disequilibrium. With the elimination of scarcity, the essential incentives change toward problem solving in general. When nations or groups of people do not have access to resources, their behavior is difficult to manage. It becomes aberrant, they lose their mental equilibrium, they cannot arrive at appropriate conclusions. Once people are free mentally of debt, obligation, servitude, then they can seek new horizons that they've never even dreamt possible before. I don't know what the future will be, but I can say it's probably we'll kill each other. But I can't live with that, so I speak out. I don't say the future will be this. And people say, how long from now do you see this scientific world? I don't know. That's not up to me. If you put me in charge, I can tell you that. But if they are in charge, how can I tell you?
If all of a sudden someone was to give you a load of money, millions, billions possibly, to start off the Venus project, would you start something in America? Would it be a different part of the world?
Motion pictures first.
I would start motion picture.
Pictures can get the millions of people in the shortest amount of time. Instead of me lecturing at different universities, the movies can travel all over the world and show people how decisions are arrived at, how we get from here to there in detail. And that's the fastest way to get to people. So we have to make a movie showing the opposition, who makes the decisions, how do you know that's right, why should we follow your plan alone? There's thousands of other views. What do you do with different viewpoints of different people who want to go in different directions? How do you manage that? If you just build a new city and put normal people in it, the city will go back to the same kind of system. So people have to know how to operate society so we don't have serial killers, robbery, murder, sexual abuse. All of that would have to be part of the educational system. I don't care about building new cities for people. I care what's up here. So some people think if you eat vegetables, you're less aggressive. Well, I've seen cows that are less aggressive, not because they eat vegetables, because there's a lot of grass. And when there's a little bit of grass, animals bite each other. So I would say scarcity produces most of the problems, which is the monetary system. Money. Senators get paid off to carry out the wishes of the drug administration or to carry out some other policy. The problem is the transition from this system to the next. There's going to be a lot of trouble, a lot of assassinations. I don't wish this, but people have never been educated to listen to new ideas. To change people fast, you have to get to the media. And if the media is afraid that I don't only rock the boat, I sink it, they're not about to invite you on.
More down the line, I think.
If you put me in charge, I'd last about a week. I think they get rid of me. If enough people understand the Venus Project and demand that a resource-based economy be installed, it will be installed. Like I said, if they do nothing, the consequences are awful. And that people think, well, things always got a little bad, you always get a little better. They are unreal. And since they are unaware of all the distant possibilities, they don't concern themselves with it. until they lose their jobs, their homes, and the monetary system collapses in on them, and the banks fail. Then they will look for something else. People have never in history changed society for the future.
You feel that there should be a political movement associated with the Venus Project?
Not a political movement, an educational movement.
Very good, yeah.
Tell people what it is that's needed, how much arable land to support so many people, and transportation that would be safe. An educational project that shows how to utilize our existing resources in a more equitable way for all people. If it's a political party, you have to consider the value system of the majority if you want them to put you into power. For example, the difference between science and theological or biblical training is that if scientists find out that the earth is round while most people believe it's flat, they don't accommodate. They don't say, well, listen, folks, it's a little round and a little flat. Then you get along with more people. But it isn't the business for science to get along. It's to talk about, I'm using old language, the truth. In other words, if you find out that living near a certain swamp produces malaria, you don't say, well, it may or may not produce malaria. You can please the people that live near the swamp, but you tell them that seems to be a high correlation, living near a swamp and malaria. In other words, the scientist is supposed to state things as he finds them, not to accommodate to the public point of view. People say, well, if so many people believe something, there must be some basis for it. Most people once believed the earth was flat. That doesn't make it flat.
Right.
And some people, like in the Hawaiian Islands, they believe in little people called the mini-hoonies. That doesn't make it so. Even though the majority of people believe something, doesn't make it so. In other words, remember when slavery existed in America, you were not permitted to teach the slaves to read. If you did, they would be difficult to manage.
Right.
If you brought up as a particular point of view, and somebody comes up and says, most of everything you think of is not your own, is what has been presented to you through indoctrination, they don't like that because you're calling them a sucker, an ignoramus. They don't like to be told that because they can't do anything with it and they can't do anything about it unless you give them a new set of tools. Remember, a surgeon without surgical instruments can't do anything. And people without a value system that provides answers, I mean workable answers to problems, don't know how to solve problems. They hope things will work out. No engineer hopes a bridge will stand up. He does calculations, he tests the concrete, the cables that support the bridge, so that he will know it'll hold up. Before he does that, he has to know what kind of weight the bridge carries and what kind of winds exist in the vicinity. Engineers never hope things are going to work out. They only engineer things to work out by understanding the variables required to make things work out. Now that's true for all things. Don't hope that your kids turn out well. Find out what it is and what is necessary to enable them to turn out well.
If there was a sustainable city built with walls around it and it was doing well and everybody lived well in it, but the outside, the values stayed the same and they were still making wars and bombs and people were still hungry and there was an economic downturn, you can be assured that that city would be bombed or be invaded for its goods. You can't live alone anymore. Everything's connected today. If we dump uranium dust in Iraq, it gets floated over to Europe. That's what happens. So it's really a global system that we have to go after where everyone lives well. We have designs, as I said, for a new city where people could come from all over the world and see. It'd be kind of a transitional city because you can't superimpose a resource-based economy within the monetary system, so it'd be a transition. And people would come and and see how the city works and see how efficient it would be, and then go back and build one in their country. And it would kind of grow this way through evolution, not revolutions. But before things break down in this culture, we'd like to have a lot more information out there so people know what to work toward. And many of them won't be interested until, as Jacques mentioned, they lose their jobs, they lose confidence in their elected leaders, and they lose their homes and their cars. Then they'll be looking for something else. But we'd like to have the information out there so they know a different direction to work toward. We really don't advocate government. We don't need government. When you think about it, what do they really do? They make laws because the system is inefficient. If you make goods and services available, you don't have to make laws that say don't steal, because anybody could have access to anything. So this is what we mean by getting at the root of the problem and eliminating the conditions where you need laws. You really don't need laws. Everybody's waiting for some messiah or some mythical figure or somebody else to take care of the problems, or looking towards government to solve the problems. They're causing the problems. It's really time that we take this on and talk about a new system and advocate this new positive direction. Our social system is very, very old. But today, our technology is racing forward, but our social design hasn't kept up with our ability to produce abundance all over the world. And this is what we're advocating, to use science and technology and the methods of science applied to the social design to create abundance. And this is possible today. People think that this is idealistic, but it's certainly, to us, idealistic to think that if we can continue as we're doing, that things will come out any better and we'll get peace and harmony and justice. It just won't happen. So we look at the conditions that cause the problems and work on alternative to those conditions.
It's just like a World's Fair to show you what's new, what is available. You look around and say, hey, I'd like one of those, or I can use that sort of thing in my kitchen, whatever it is. And then they always invite comment or something new comes up. What do you think about it? Do you feel it's sufficient? Do you feel there's shortcomings? Enter into your computer your point of view regarding this. So you have a built-in democracy. You have a participatory culture where all people participate, and that is in a constant process so that people will know up to the minute what is coming out, what exists, what is available, what is not available. In other words, there'll be many bulletins and many publications and visualizations of what is needed. So all the world's people will be informed constantly of what we don't know, what is needed badly, and asking for suggestions and papers and ideas from everybody. I just want to say this to you, that all the marvels and wonders of technology can amount to nothing unless it elevates humans to their highest potential. This is the aim of the future by design.
To remember that this is a much better system than the current one, not some utopia, because such thing doesn't exist. Technology and discoveries are constantly moving, so you cannot have the best technology and the best system. Is a continuous process. For such a society, you need technology that will free man from any unwanted work, will produce plenty of goods and services, and will lead automation to a new dimension. A society in which all share, no one owns anything. A society in which human beings use technology, this extension of themselves. A highly educated society, a society where information and technology will be accessible to all, without any submission. A society where no one will be in charge because we'll not need it. A society without reasons for conflicts. A society where you will feel like a human being, and the rest, technology, information, comfort, etc., will be only an extension of you.
Come in.
This is so much better. It's a lot like home.
Well, Prot, I was hoping you'd tell me more about home.
Well, what would you like to know?
Well, do you have a family on K-Pax?
It doesn't work on K-Pax the same way it works here, Mark. On K-Pax, we don't have families in the way that you think of them. In fact, family would be a non sequitur on our planet, as it would on most others.
In other words, you never knew your parents.
On K-Pax, children are not raised by their biological parents, Mark, but by everyone. They circulate among us, learning from one and then another.
Do you have a child?
No.
Do you have a wife waiting back for you on K-Pax?
Mark. You are not really listening to what I'm saying to you, are you? We do not have marriage on K-Pax. There are no wives. There are no husbands. There are no families.
I see. So, what about societal structure? Government?
No, there's no need for one.
Well, you have no laws?
No laws, no lawyers.
How do you know right from wrong?
Every being in the universe knows right from wrong, Mark.
But what if someone did do something wrong, committed murder or a rape, how would you punish them?
Let me tell you something, Mark. You humans, most of you, subscribe to this policy of an eye for an eye, a life for a life, which is known throughout the universe for its stupidity. Even your Buddha and your Christ had quite a different vision, but nobody's paid much attention to them, not even the Buddhists or the Christians. You humans, sometimes it's hard to imagine how you've made it this far.